patreon.com/pro is the place to go to get access to not just live access to whatever you want to listen to whenever you want to listen to it, but also our Pro podcast feed and also 2 exclusive shows. You're going to get Options, Oddities, and, of course, the Pro Q&A, and, of course, access to all those great giveaways we give out throughout the month there. And we'll be traveling a little bit earlier this week. I'm still down here in the Southern studio, so my sound a little bit different. That's why I'm down here. Feeling hale and hearty today, listeners, so it seems like most of the madness is behind me. If there's some wood, I'm going to knock on it right now. There we go. Keep the content ball rolling for you. We're still working because we were planning on traveling a little bit earlier this week, so we're going to probably do the Pro Q&A a little bit later in the week. All you Pro members, keep an eye on your email. That will let you know the latest. We have everything scheduled for you. Of course, Oddities still coming at you at the usual time. Maybe we'll do like a back-to-back Oddities and Pro Q&A, huh? How's that sound? That sounds kind of fun. So we can do a lot of fun stuff along those lines there. TheOptionSinsider.com/pro is the place to go to participate in all the fun goodness that we have going on. Speaking of fun goodness, this is normally the part of the show where I would fire off a cool wrestling-oriented bit of music from the 80s, and we would all have fun guessing and then mocking the guessers as a result. But we tried it last week in the Southern studio. Doesn't seem like it worked. We will try to get it going back when I'm back in the Northern studio there next week. Okay, there we go. And I am joined, of course, fashionably late. Uncleist of Mike's will be joining us in a little bit. So he's not even here now, so he can't even... And now he's having technical problems. There we go. But he can't even guess anyway. So without Uncle Mike, it's no fun doing the wrestling guessing. And then, of course, I am also joined by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show. Are the Skype gods not smiling upon you today, sir?
Yes, I'm here. Oh my, I feel like one of those who's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know. I lost the call got dropped several times. So anyway.
You are back now. So before the Skype gods laugh at you again, we shall keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the block of trading, of course, where we break down everything that is lighting up our tapes here to kick off our broadcast week. And it's a bit of a mixed bag out there today. We're seeing some green on the screen, a little bit of red as well. So it's got a bit of a sprinkling, bit of just a smattering. Whatever you're looking for today, you can probably find it in one of the major indices. You got the S&P up about 0.2%, so kind of a middling to nothing day for the S&P. The Dow up about 1/3%, and the Nasdaq feeling its dark side oats today, off about 0.25%. So not huge moves in either direction, but again, kind of understandable. Everyone is once again doing the whole Fed watch thing, so kind of playing a little bit of the old wait and see until we can hear from the Fed folks exactly what they're up to. That means VIX coming into show time right around 23.5. That puts it up not even 1/4 point, about 0.2 point from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX of the Vol 84, down a whopping 1 point from where it was on Thursday. VXX, who knows what this product is up to these days. Today it feels like it wants to be up. So it's up about 0.6 point, up to about a 20.8 when we kicked off the show. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's down 0.6 point from where it was on Thursday's show. UVXY, 11.5, down 0.5 point from where it was this time last week. SVIX, so our old inverse friend, was at about a 12 even when we kicked off the show. It's up about 0.3 point from Monday's, or I should say Thursday's program. Today would be Monday, listeners. UVIX, 12.5, down about 0.75 point or so from Thursday's show. And VolQ, the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ 100, 28.15, up a whopping 0.15 on the day. Speaking of VolQ, my producer is just sending me this. It's kind of funny. The creator of VolQ, Scott Nations, tweeting out right before showtime, he had Chinese food last night. And he got it. And in the back of his fortune cookie, he got an ad for FTX. Yes, the crypto exchange, listeners. He's like, that's some quality use of marketing dollars there on the back of your fortune cookie. I guess he's tweeting about it, so I guess it got some traction there. But that does seem like shall we say, an interesting use of your marketing. I guess they're tired of buying up stadium rights and naming rights to stadiums, so now they're going on the old fortune cookie. So, Mr. Meatball, or I should say Mr. Rock Lobster, I apologize. First off, what are your thoughts on the amazingly valuable fortune cookie sponsorship, and then B, for crypto firm, and then B, what else is lighting up your tape today, sir?
I think that's pretty clever marketing. You're
down for that. You're like, okay, I see this stamp on the back of my fortune cookie. I'm going to trade with this firm now.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have this crypto kind of lends itself to this sort of fortune cookie mentality, I think, a little bit. So, like
I have to ask TOSAW what he thinks of this when he finally joins us.
I'm sure he will have some choice words for it. So, but kind of fun. And I will mention it is Monday. I know you normally do your 80s wrestling, but on Twitter, there's this really funny thing with the little kid that you posted with, doing the throwdown with the Hulkster, which I thought was
that did bring a smile.
One of the more endearing wrestling moments I've ever seen.
That did bring a smile to my face. That was pretty cool. Yes, that was definitely a young Uncle Mike in action there.
Yes, prior to his hugeness as a football player, but that was just a young Uncle Mike throwing it down on the Hulkster.
So what else is lighting up
am I supposed
today?
To talk about stocks?
Yes. If you want to talk about the market, you can, or you can just talk about young Hulksters and crypto.
So right now, I think there's a couple of interesting things. One is I believe we are redefining the recession. It used to be 2 quarters of negative economic growth. Apparently, it is not that any longer. It is in the eyes of the beholder. There are lots of metrics, apparently, that are more important than the economy shrinking 2 quarters in a row. So we have that going on. So maybe we'll just relabel. We will regender the recession somehow.
Don't even go down that road.
To something else. I guess inflation doesn't count in the recession thing. But so anyway, so there's that kind of candy cane going on currently. And also, I mean, last week, like Verizon and AT&T, they're saying, hey, we're seeing a slowdown in payments for, your phone bill. And, I would guess just because inflation now, I mean, I'm sure that's at least a phone bill for most people, everybody. Like, inflation, like you're whatever you're buying before, you got to spend more money. So people are not paying their phone bills. And I thought the last thing to go in a recession would be folks not paying their phone bills because they won't, if their phone gets turned off, what are they going to do? I, for one, would be quite happy if my phone was turned off and I never use it again. But I'm an old curmudgeon, so it doesn't really matter what I think. But I thought those were very, I would say, troubling. So we have, besides the relabeling of the reception and and phone customers not really paying their bills on time, I guess they made a comment on it. It wasn't a material impact, but they commented on it. And of course, what is that? Stocks are up today. So I believe we are waiting for the Fed to opine and say something about the market on Wednesday and jack interest rates up a whole bunch more. I think the market's predicting 75 basis points, could be as high as 100. Until inflation starts to cool down, which I think we discussed on this show are factors at this point that are well out of the Fed's control. So they are going to try to correct economic growth and at least house prices. We've seen that, offering prices for houses have come down quite a bit. So we have at least starting to see the signs of some inflation pullback. Gas is cheaper. It was over $5 here. It's now down to $4.50. I haven't seen it in food prices yet. I haven't seen it in lobster prices yet. Lobster prices here are like $13 a pound, which remain as a lot. Actually, it's normally around $4 or $5 a pound. So you have that going. So again, I think there's positive inflation shoots. The Fed is trying something, I guess better late than never. And Congress is going to spend $50 billion on big tech chip fabrication. I would guess the one industry that really doesn't need money from Congress would be chip fabricators. Yet somehow they convinced the Biden administration or Congress to fork over $50 billion. So probably better to domestic production than maybe, let's say, Ukraine, which is getting apparently quite a bit of money from us lately. So anyway, I think that's the state of the world, still a bit topsy-turvy. And VIX is hanging out right at the danger zone once again. It's 47 cents away from zone 4, which it has been in most of the last 4.5, 5 months. So again, we're waiting for news to somehow turn the corner, but as of yet, I haven't seen things, again, I think marginally better just because the Russian thing hasn't gotten worse, but I still think we're kind of in for a rocky stock market here for a little bit, but that's my views as of right now.
You are very hung up on this phone payment indicator. That to you is that's the canary in the coal mine. People paying their phones late. That's it. Rock Lobster. Now he's worried. Now he's skittish.
I found that odd. Like, okay, I just see them never happening, and yet I guess it depends if they actually start shutting people's phones off, and they all go to those cheapy plans. So we'll see how all that goes down.
All right, and now we are joined fashionably late, as always, raging prima donna that he is, by none other than the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, are you enjoying your fashionably late, all eyes on you entrance, sir?
Hey, you know what? Since I didn't get to do the 80s wrestling thing today, I'll just quote Bobby Heenan. One time when he would come in late to interviews, Gene Okerlund would get on him and he'd say, what do I need, a note from my doctor?
Yes, actually, you do. We do require a note from your doctor, so we will be expecting that post haste. You missed it at the top of the show. The Rock Lobster and I were discussing something that will be of great interest to you as the owner of BitcoinReallySucks.com, which is that friend of the network, Mr. Scott Nations, the creator of Volex.
I heard.
Oh, you heard all that. Oh, so what are your thoughts? I'm looking at the picture right now that he tweeted out. It is on the back of the little wrapper inside of the fortune. It just says FTX. What are your thoughts on that amazing ad, Spencer?
I mean, it's an interesting way to go. I mean, I doubt he's going to have much financial competition in the fortune cookie advertising space. So that's one way to look at it. And I suppose people that are looking to eat Chinese food, just buy some Bitcoin. So why not? I remember when I was working for Options Express and we would do the money shows out in Vegas. And so it was kind of offensive in some ways. Like the guys from the fixed income booths, they would be like, well, we think that you guys would find lots of business here in a gambling town. And so I just wanted to punch the guys in the throat. I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. But I think it just depends on your audience with where you're going for it. And so I think that now I'm probably going to sound like one of those fixed income guys did to me back in the day, and I took offense to it. But, if it's a Bitcoin thing, then they can take offense to it. I don't care. But that's, I guess, if you need to advertise on fortune cookies, that's the kind of business you're going to get.
Maybe they're ahead of the curve. Maybe this is something we all should be doing. Maybe the St. Charles Wealth should be on the back of fortune cookies right now. We're missing out on just completely untouched. Everyone's fighting for, ads online and whatever, billboard, wherever you want to go. People already have ads there. No one's fighting for the back of the fortune cookie spot. So maybe they're ahead of the game, sir. Maybe we mock when we should be following their lead. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not much of an online guy, so I really can't talk. So I guess I shouldn't talk, but I just try to be nice to people and just don't say anything bad unless it's about crypto.
Then it really sucks. All right. Aside from the sucking of crypto and the weirdness of crypto in your fortune cookie, what's lighting up your tape today, Uncle Mike?
I mean, I think right now we're at a key point. This is going to be an interesting week in that we're right on the precipice of 4,000 with the S&P 500. And whenever you're on the precipice of a key number and you have a big event coming out like the Fed this week, it usually leads to some interesting trading. I think that 4,000, because it's such a round number, this could serve as resistance for the S&P. And if the market doesn't like what it hears, then this could be there could be blood in the streets on Thursday and Friday. If the market does like what it hears, then this could be the catalyst that starts the great bull market of 2022. The question is of course, what is the Fed going to say? And the other question that I think none of us really know the answer to is, what does the market really want to hear? Because if the Fed doesn't raise rates as much as they say, if they're hawkish, what does that mean? If they're dovish, what does that mean to the marketplace? This has just become such a, I know I say it all the time, but this has become such a Princess Bride market with the battle of wits in that scene, to where it's like, oh, that's what you want me to say. Oh, but that's what you thought I was going to say. And that's just what it feels like trying to look at these markets. So I think with the S&P itself, just make sure you're protected where you need to be protected, and you have the stomach for riding out the downturns for your buy and hold stuff. And if you're trying to guess what this announcement's going to be and what the market's going to say about it, good luck. So I guess that's kind of my take on stocks. We have 10-year note is selling off a little bit today, so it's kind of been flat a little bit. We rallied a little bit last week, so we're not continuing with it. So it'll be interesting to see how that reacts to what the Fed does. And so definitely watching that. But for right now, not to steal the thunder of Around the Block, but I think that's just what I'm watching at this stage.
Funny you should mention making people guess about what's going on with the markets and the Fed, because that's exactly what we're doing this week, listeners. Our question of the week just went live right before showtime. And the question is quite simply, the Fed is back this week, sending traders into a tizzy about interest rates. We're not going to make you guess the rates. That's all in the Fed Watch. You can go look at that stuff if you want. But instead, we're going to ask you, if you had to buy a SPY at the money, call or put, at the time you posted this, it was right around $39.70. Expiring at the end of the week, which way are you going to go? So you're going to buy that SPY put? Are you going to fade this rally? Are you going to buy a SPY call? You're all in, rally ho, baby? Or we got silly, we throw a third one in and say, hey, you straddle because you're feeling greedy. You want both sides. You're willing to pay up. You're paying through the nose, baby. So you need an enormous move. You don't care which way. It's just got to go somewhere. I won't reveal the results yet. It just went live. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Instead, let's get on out to see what's lighting it up out here. And as you probably expect on a day like today, the market's kind of shrugging its shoulders, can't figure out what it wants to be today. And we got the Fed looming in a couple of days here. Not a heck of a lot of paper lighting up the tape today, listeners. VIX right now, 173,000 contracts on the tape. Our chat is already guessing what we were going to do today for the wrestling guessing game. We did not do it today, so it will be for next week. Don't spoil it, people. Don't clue them in for because then they'll have a chance of getting it. Yes, I think you guys are on the right tip with what you folks are guessing. But yeah, out there today on the old market activity, not a heck of a lot. VIX, 173,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV, 450 right now, so that continues to trend in the wrong direction as well. VIX just continues to move farther away from 500,000 contracts a day. SPY, about 3.25 million right now, so SPY's looking pretty robust. The ADV, about 6.8 million, so it's hanging out right along those lines, looking pretty nice out there. Probably going to hit that level today. The S, 938,000, so it's on track for 1 million pretty soon, and we know 1 million this time of the show, close to it in the S. That's nothing to sneeze at. The ADV is 2.14. Will it get there today? Seems like it probably has a chance of getting there. Small caps, IWM, 356,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, 699, just a tick under 700K, listeners. Seems like it'll probably hit that today. The Qs, 1.33 million. The ADV out there is only 2.43 million, so looks like the Qs are going to hit their number today as well. Speaking of numbers, let's get out to the top 10 most active, see what's lighting things up out there today. Let's go out to number 10. Only cost you 141,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today, listeners. That ain't a heck of a lot, to put it mildly, out here. We haven't seen it this light in a little while. We've been seeing most days over 200K recently. And yeah, just ran the numbers again right now to see if there's any sort of flurry of activity, and it's up to a whopping 142. So not a heck of a lot going on out there today, listeners. That gets you to good old Ford. Ford, $12.89, up about 8 cents. So looking nice and robust again after dipping back down to, let's see, how low did it get? Got down to around the 11 handle. Actually got down to 1061. at one point. So yeah, that was they came for Ford for a little while there. 1284. So Ford feeling the upside again today. Good for only 141,000 contracts. Remember when Ford was a meme name, listeners? Doesn't seem like it was that long ago. Are we getting back into it? You guys getting back into Ford? Is Ford memey again? I don't know. Hit us up. Let us know. As we get on to number 9, this is kind of like at least the bottom half of the top 10 here is like all the old standbys popping back in. Number 9, Microsoft here. Good for a whopping 152,000 contracts. That still shouldn't be enough to break into the top 10 on a normal day, but today kind of light. Microsoft today off about $1 or about 0.4%, trading right around 259 and change out there today. Looks like they got down to 241. That was their low, about 241 and a half. So they have bounced a wee bit, and the 52-week high was nearly 350. So obviously they're a wee bit off of their highs as well. Then we've got number 8, the artist formerly known as Facebook, now masquerading under the awful pseudonym of Meta. Off 2.5, about 260 today. That's about 1.5%, trading around 166.70 or so today. One of my producers pointed out to me today that you have to call them the Mangs now as opposed to the Fangs. And I said, I will never do that. I will never call them the Mangs because that sounds horrible. Fang versus Mang. I think you know which way I'm going to go. Number 7, we've got the old Google, a.k.a. Alphabet, out there. Let's see what they are up to today. Google 107 and about 107.10 or so, off about 75 cents. They're good for a whopping 201,000 contracts as well. So number 7 and 8 both kind of tied, Google and Meta. Number 6, AMD dropping a bit, usually hanging out on number 4. 214,000 contracts for AMD. So that's a light for AMD as well. AMD is usually good for around 350, 400,000 contracts. Not so much today, listeners. Number 6, AMD. Number 5, Snap. We just talked about these at length on Options Oddities on Friday, listeners. So if you're not a pro member, you missed it. We did talk about some puts last week, which we're getting threatened. Those were on the odd block. We started those, and we kind of paid off some of them. At least some of it. We'll see. There was a lot of activity going up in Snap on Friday. Snap right now, $9.94. So it's like it got as low as $9.66. Was that today? I think it got threatened that today. But yeah, rough times here for all things Snap. Remember last week, just on the show last week, listeners, on Thursday, we were laughing about that person selling the 9 puts for 12 cents. And now they are kind of in play. The stock's $9.94 right now. So interesting stuff. We asked you, would you have sold those or not? And I think they got up to about 45, 50 cents. I'm not sure if they're trading right now, but they are bid a little bit more in his face or her face. But sounds like they might want the stock at that level and hasn't quite gotten there yet. So they're okay. Number 4, NVIDIA hanging out around his normal spot, 309,000 for NVIDIA. Number 3. The Amazonians. What's up out there in the Amazonian land? And 120 off about $1.20 or about 1% today. They are good for 337,000 contracts. Again, this is kind of a anemic top 10 today, listeners. I'm embarrassed to bring this to you, but hey, it's not my fault. It's the markets. Blame the markets. Number 2. Yes, I said number 2. It's the Fruit Company. Fruit Company only managing a paltry 454,000 contract. Usually they can easily do 3x that. Not quite today, listeners. Apple off $0.50 or about 1/3%. And that means number 1, once again, is the old Tesla. Let's see what Tesla is up to today. 811.25, off $5.50 or about 2/3%. So kind of a quiet day for Tesla. 588,000. That's all it cost you, listeners, to top the top 10 today. 588,000. I'm trying to remember the last time it was that low. It's been a little bit out there. Let's see what's going on out here this week from an earnings perspective. And luckily for you, listeners, because we like you, we've got the updated earnings move results, earnings season, and earnings trades reports hot off the presses from our friends over there at Orats. Why? Because we like you. And because it's all free. Because we like you. That's how much we like you folks. What's popping off this week? Well, there's something for everybody this week. Today we got Phillips and Whirlpool. Tomorrow, UPS. So if you're into all the shipping and logistics, which has been all the rage since the pandemic, we got you covered tomorrow. Coca-Cola. You want to go back to old school Warren Buffett land? You got you there. GM and GE. Mickey D's, Albertsons, Kimberly-Clark, Alphabet, Microsoft, Visa, and Chipotle. That's just tomorrow, Wednesday. Boeing, our old friends across the street. They haven't moved yet, but they will be moving soon. Spotify, Waste Management, Sherwin-Williams, Hilton, Humana, I won't call them Meta, Facebook, Ford, Qualcomm, and Etsy. That's on Wednesday. Thursday, here we go. Tilray, Pfizer, Baxter, Southwest, MasterCard, Merck, Hertz, Amazon, Roku, Intel. Friday, ExxonMobil, Chevron, B&G, AbbVie, Philips 66, and AstraZeneca. My goodness. There are some names popping off this week. Let's see. We've got some earnings move results. Not a ton popping off before the bell today. Let's just look at this report really quickly. See if we can run down anything cool for you guys. If you're into dormant products, we got you covered. Outside of that, not a lot of big names popping off before the bell today. But we got some big names coming up, as I just mentioned. Mickey D's on the 26th before the bell. We've got the earnings report for them updated minutes ago, listeners. They were trading right around $2.54 when this report was run. They were pricing in, get this, listeners, $7.28. In the past, they moved $4.40. Man, Mickey D's is pricing in a lot of McDouble Vol. Big Mac Vol, call it what you will out there, listeners. Let's go to the old Googles. We were just talking about them. 108 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $6.66. Oh, number of the beast there. In the past, they've moved $5.38, so a little bit extra juice for them. Our old friend, let's go to Microsoft. Just talking about them as well. 26 after the bell for them. $2.60 and about a third is where they were trading. They're pricing in, my goodness, nearly $12. $11.93. In the past, they've moved $6.57. That is, wow, that's a lot of extra juice from Microsoft. Maybe that's because the whole Activision deal is still kind of in limbo a little bit with regulatory review. I'll have to go look and see why there is so much extra juice. Mr. Rocklap, he likes himself a little bit of Microsoft. Maybe he has a theory as to why Microsoft has nearly doubled the price of its straddle. But intriguing stuff out there. Let's look really quickly for some more. We got our old friends across the street. Boeing's July 27th before the bell. 158.20 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $8.36. In the past, they moved $5.81. So a fair amount of extra juice in Boeing as well. Wow, intriguing stuff. Let's go to, let's see, what else do we have on the old trading front? Are you into waste, listeners? And we got waste management. Let's go out to Ford. Let's go out to Ford on the 27th after the bell. Just talking about them, $12.82 is where they were trading going into this report. They were pricing in 84 cents. In the past, they've moved 60 cents. So decent amount of extra juice. It's no 2X like we're seeing in some of these other names, but a fair amount of extra juice. Etsy, same day after the bell as well, 97.10 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $12.34. In the past, they've moved $10.95. So fair amount of extra juice out there as well, about $1.39 extra out there for Etsy. Let's go out to the old artist formerly known as Facebook as well. 27th after the bell, 169.25 is where they were trading. Wow, how much extra juice are they putting on here? $17.59 is what they are pricing in. In the past, they've moved $12.92. Wow. That's some extra juice in the old Facebook realm. Wow. I guess they're a lot of vol coming with that new name, listeners. the new fortunes of the cup. Let's go out to the airlines really quickly. Love, that's of course Southwest, 28th before the bell. 40.25 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.86, so closing in on $2. In the past, they've moved to $1.03, so that's a fair amount of extra juice for Southwest as well, which again makes sense. Input prices through the roof, all sorts of craziness going on. We're hearing stories about crazy delays out of Chicago right now and cancellations for days because of weather, and of course inflation, can't get pilots, all sorts of craziness and drama in the world of airlines. Let's do a couple more, then we'll get out of here, listeners. Let's go on out to Apple, a name one or two of you may be interested in. They are 28th after the bell. 154 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $6.90. In the past, they moved $5.27. So that's a fair amount of extra juice for Apple as well. Wow, $1.63 worth of extra juice. That's a lot for the fruit company. Amazon, 28th after the bell, 122 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in $7.91. In the past, they moved $6.75. So $1.16 worth of extra juice in Amazon as well. Is that merited? I will leave it up to you folks, listeners, to decide. Right now, the earnings season report, it has been updated a little bit now. We're back up to 92 names reporting, and we have back up to 109%. So we're actually outperforming again, which is kind of nice. I was looking a little dire earlier when it was, I think, 65% or whatever the hell it was. It was a depressing number. Let's look here right now. Oh, we got a whole bunch of new trade signals today on our earnings trades report. They're buying a straddle in CVLT. They're selling a straddle in FFIV. They're selling a straddle in UPS, and they're buying a calendar in Logitech. So 4 new trades going up today on top of the 53 long straddles, 22 short straddles, and 42 long calendars that we are already monitoring for your trading interest and convenience, listeners. Where do you go to find all that? TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Meanwhile, we got to get on out of here and into our next segment. It is time to unleash the beast. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we unleash the beast, a.k.a. the Eye of Sauron, and see what it fixes its fiery gaze on today. Before we do that, really quickly, Mr. Rocklops, I was just talking about some of the juice they're pricing in to some of these names. One of them kind of caught my eye. Microsoft, a name you trade quite a bit, at least you used to, I know. Not quite doubling their straddle, but pretty darn close. In the past, they moved $6.57. Right now, pricing in nearly $12. What are your thoughts on why Softy is pricing in so much extra juicer?
I think it's the whole, the big tech valuation thing. I think the market's trying to figure out really like, okay, last year was like, any price is good. But I think, traders looked at Amazon and like the earnings felt that they kind of peaked. I mean, Amazon hasn't made a new high, I believe, in 2 years, something like that. So I think, part of the problem is, it's not that Microsoft isn't like a great growth, it's a great company. It's just how much are people willing to pay? And at least like when you look at Amazon over the last 2 years, like that peak was in December of last year. So you look at all of this and you're like, it peaked and it hasn't seen anything close to that number since. And I think, Microsoft is trading at almost a 30 multiple on almost a $2 trillion market cap, 1.5. So I think there's some room if these earnings aren't great for the stocks to move at this point. And quite frankly, it could be either way. I'm trying not to be like, the big bear in the house, but it does look like, Microsoft, there's nothing to say that Microsoft can't be a $220 stock again and still have like a pretty healthy, that's only like a 22 PE or something like that. So it's not unreasonable, I think, for these stocks. And I think people are looking at the earnings and they're freaking out. I mean, they saw Tesla moved how much after their earnings, which I'm still kind of scratching my head on that one, to be quite honest. So anyway, I think there's a little bit more movement because the stocks have also come down from, pretty lofty prices. So I think the earnings are a little bit more much more variable in the trader's eyes, so to speak.
Let's see what else is variable out here in the Eye of Sauron today. We're first going out. This could be a newcomer. If it's not, we haven't talked about them in quite some time. This is Philips, ticker symbol PHG, or if you go for their full name, Knickly G. There's a lot of consonants in there. Listen, it's Philips and V. There's about 14 consonants in that first part of it. Obviously, a Dutch multinational firm. We like to know them as Philips. I think most people refer to them that way. Medical devices and a bunch of other stuff that they make out there. Let's see, trading $20.50. Kind of a rough year for them. Off about $25.50 or 55% on the year. A year ago, trading $46.14. They got to their high, it looks like around November, so when a lot of the market did, of about $48.72. and then it's been pretty much straight down. In fact, they fell off a cliff. On November 12th, they were $47.62. By November 15th, they were $42. Then by November 30th, they were $35. So they had already fallen quite a bit by December 1st. And then they just kept coming down to where they are right now. $20.50. Looks like they just come out with their earnings. They're blaming China. Everyone's blaming China. So the slowdown in their orders in China was no bueno. Let's see what the Eye of Sauron found, if that was bueno or not, listeners. It looks like someone may be feeling that this sell-off is overdone. Someone was coming in today. They really liked the AUG 22 halves. They picked up 4,000 of them for 30 cents. They were a dime at 30. They weren't playing. They said, we'll take all of them for 30 cents. That's a 45 vol. So in comparison to some of the other call purchases we've seen of late that are, triple-digit volatility, at least from a vol perspective, it's not the worst. The stock was $20.41 when these went up. Interesting. 22.5. I just said the stock is 20.5. So these have a bit of a ways to go if they are going to see the light of day. At the same time, Mr. Rocklopster, that was the big trade out here in Phillips out here today. But we also saw, at the same time these went up, we saw small lots of the 22 half puts start going up as well. 393 of them for $2.15, 207 of them for $2.15. They kept going up in little chunks like that for a couple of hours there. Not quite the same amount. We saw about 4,400 total of the 22 half calls go up. Only 1,500 of the puts. So then again, it's not like it's a conversion reversal because the numbers don't line up. And also it's post earnings, so you can see people piling into that strike. But a little bit weird that we saw the exact same strike on both sides of the coin light up at around the same time. But we'll focus on the calls mostly. If you have thoughts on the puts as well. But what are your thoughts on this 4,000 lot of AUG 22 halves in everyone's favorite Phillips?
You're looking at me so when you think of, stocks I want to buy calls in, do large, slow-moving European multinationals come to mind?
No, they do not. Let alone lifting the offer for them.
Lifting the offer. Earnings are out. They sold the stock off 7%. I think the earnings are out. That's what I'm guessing. And you still jump in and buy those calls? I'm not saying it can't work. I just find it. I wish them luck. That's all I'm going to say on this one. I wish them luck. I would rather be a seller of those things, to be quite honest. Like the Vols 43, I don't care. I could just tell you, as a liquidity provider, I would sell those and buy stock delta neutral and be perfectly happy with that trade. But I could be wrong. Unless something miraculous happens out of the EU, which there could be the Russian miracle. They could declare a ceasefire. Always possible, because it does not look like they're leaving the eastern part of Ukraine anytime soon. Could happen, but also, maybe a bounce on the natural gas supplies. Who knows? But it just, none of it looks, it doesn't look that appetizing. You want to hear something crazy about this stock? At the beginning, April of 2021, which a little over a year ago, it was a $60 stock. So
good times.
Maybe they have that in mind. I do not know, but I'm just saying European equities is having a hard time.
It's going back to 60 by August expiration. You heard it here first on the Odd listeners.
It's a tough one. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, this is a challenge.
It's a tough one getting back there.
This one, I definitely with. I'm sure the liquidity providers. We're not angry. 43 vol or whatever. You're right. They could sell that. They could buy stock, and there's some stuff they could do against that. They're going to be all right. So they don't mind selling those. Which way would you rather go, listeners? Sell those or buy those bad boys out here? Let's go out to our next name. This is People Corp. We talked about them before on the show. Energy company out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Ticker symbol People, PPL. Trading right now, $27.80. Today, they're up about half a buck. On the year, they are down about 2% or about half a buck. So they giveth and they taketh away. Because a year ago, they were trading $28.37. So yeah, a little over half a buck away. and then they rallied to their near-term high of $30.46, and they sold off again. They're kind of bouncing in the high 20s to low 30s range, and they rallied up again to about 30 and a quarter in January, and they sold off hard on March 1st, $25.45, and then right back up again to $30.37 in April. Then they hit their high for the year. They sold off a bit again, down to like about $28 in May. Then on everybody's favorite day, not June 8th this time, but June 7th, they hit their high for the year of $30.72. Then they came for it again. Next week was trading $25, and then it rallied again to kind of back where it is right now, $27.81. So they've done a lot of living over the course of the year. You know, that nets out to not a heck of a lot of net movement on the year. Let's see if our Eye of Sauron can find something cool for us out here today. Let's go out to, it was September, Sep 29s in particular. Someone deciding, I guess, to just blast away at these bad boys. 3,402 times for 30 cents. This is even less juice, Mr. Ropp. This is only a 17 vol out here. The stock was $27.80 when these went up, which is exactly where it is right now. So you're talking about 4% out of the money or so. There are earnings between now and September expiration. The next one is on August 3rd. So they do get a little bit of earnings juice in here for this as well. Mr. Rocklops looks like somebody deciding they don't mind dumping their stock at $29.30, which isn't an amazing level, but it isn't a terrible level either. It's kind of right in the middle there of the road. What are your thoughts on this call overwrite in people?
Well, what's funny is like you have that customer wrote a SEP 29 call for 30 cents. And we have the other customer in a Phillips spot, I would say equivalent strike for 30 cents in August. So that just gives you it gives you an idea which one has a better shot. I think the people buy ride is not terrible. And it pays a decent dividend. So I think in this market, I don't think folks are too unhappy with some kind of yield. So, it just looks like a straight yield play to me, like some fund, pension fund, whatever. Like, okay, is it going to pay somebody's bills this month?
Rock Lobster not loving these. Yeah, he's getting some juice. You can't hate some juice in this market, listeners. You all need the juice these days to fight back against the inflation monster. Let's get out to this one as well. This one was all the rage back about a month ago, listeners. This was Revlon. As you will recall, we talked about it on the show. We were all surprised Revlon might go bankrupt. And they flirted with the fire ever so briefly. Listen, they got down to 108 on June 13th. And then they just soared back to the stratosphere, in particular, $8.14. That was on June 22nd. Then they kind of gave a lot of that back up to about $4.59 on June 29th, and then they're kind of just vacillating these days around the it's like the $5 to $6 range, hanging out right now on the lower end of that $5.14, off another 30-odd cents today. At the time, back on June 23rd, listeners, we profiled a couple of the trades, some put love and some call craziness. Let's pay both of those off right now. First, we saw someone coming in at the time. The stock was nearly $7, $6.97, and they scooped up the 5 puts for about 90 cents, 89.9 cents. Let's 1,131 times. These were the July expiring on the 1st. So these were in the weeklies. And they pretty much lifted the offer. That was, if you're wondering, a 384 volatility. So yeah, they paid a lot of juice for these. More folks came in after that. Total nearly 5,000 traded on the day. And guess what the stock went up on the 1st, listeners? $5.16. Guess what was still open? These puts. So unfortunately, this one was no bueno. Looks like they dropped about $100,000 on that first block. Obviously, all the volume that day, there could have been other stuff up with the later paper, but if we add it all up, and they all was the same kind of paper, then it's talking about $450,000 in total that they dropped on this. I looked to see if they had any Tide prints or stock sold off nearly $2. That would have been a loser as well. So luckily for them, no stock legs on this. Looks like they were just straight up put buys, and they dropped nearly $500,000. Not to be outdone, that same day, someone came in and picked up 1,285 of the July 10 calls. They paid nearly $1 for these, 99.9 cents. Ah, my goodness. They paid through the offer. The offer was at 95. They paid, I'll pay $1. Why not? This is also a 373. This is meme paper written all over it, listeners. 300 plus volatility. The stock was $7.46 when these went up. And guess what also went out worthless? These calls. The stock closed at $5.75 on July expiration. So you're dropping another $1.25 or so on these bad boys. So all told, you're out over $500,000 on both these trades. Obviously, they could not have been linked, but just they went up the same day. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Mr. Rocklouser, people throwing a lot of money away on Revlon last month. What say you, sir?
Well, you look at, they're throwing it away. I couldn't figure out from the bankruptcy what actually is going on, to be quite so is Ron Perlman, who was a pretty rich guy. Like, I thought he was like one of the richest guys in the world for a while. I mean, back in the day, maybe the 80s or 90s or something like that, buying and selling companies all over the place. But, so they're buying, it just kind of looks like they burned all these calls out and that was it. I mean, it wouldn't be, I guess somebody was betting on the squeeze kind of picking up steam, and I think they're a little disappointed from what I can tell.
When folks are never disappointed, though, it's the strategy block. So let's get to it.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, let's do this thing. What you got for us today, sir?
I want to talk about straddles again. So going into this week with earnings, with the Fed, there's a lot of talk about straddles right now. And so with that, last week we talked about buying a straddle. This week, let's talk about selling a straddle. I want to talk about a trade that I don't think I've done in over 10 years, quite honestly, a good old-fashioned naked short straddle. What that is where you believe a stock is not going to move that much, if at all, and you sell an at-the-money naked call and you sell an at-the-money naked put. Now, keep in mind, if God were to tell me that this stock was never going to move, I would sell a straddle. That would be the best possible thing for me to do. I would leverage everything that I owned and I would sell a straddle on that stock. Now, of course, God doesn't give me stock tips, so that's why I don't do that. So with that being said, what I like to do is just look at a straddle, and I like to kind of see where the market could go. So in other words, we talk about on this show all the time how we analyze a straddle. What is the straddle going into the earnings? Well, it's the XYZ stocks trading at 100, and the straddle is trading at 6, meaning, let's say the at-the-money calls at $3, the at-the-money puts at $3. That means that option traders are expecting a $6 movement in the stock. They just don't know which way yet. So with that being said, what that means is that the big money, so to speak, or the people that are actually trading options have priced in a $6 move going into the event. And so that's a way with which I like to look at straddles, which a lot of traders do. But in terms of selling a naked straddle, it's something, like I said, I haven't done in 10 years. Now, what's the disadvantage to that? Going back to that example, if the stock stays between 97 and 103, because it was a $6 straddle, that means you're going to make money, or at least break even. Your two break even points are at 97 and 103. And so from there, you know that if it stays in that range between the time you sell the straddle and expiration, then you won't lose. However, where will you lose? Well, you're naked to the upside or the downside. If the stock goes to 110, 120, 130, you are selling a naked call. You're getting a little bit more money for the naked call because the naked put expired worthless, but it's the same risk as a naked call. Should the stock go below 97 down to 90, 80, or 70, you sold a naked put. Now, once again, you're getting a little bit more money than you would for just selling one side of it, but you are getting that risk put on against you. So understand that there is risk to selling a straddle. And as someone who looks at straddles all the time, I never trade them. So hopefully that tells you something about the risk-reward component of a straddle. If you would like to learn more about trading the straddle and some of my thoughts on it, I just put out a YouTube video. I just tweeted out about 20 minutes ago. Follow me on Twitter at Mike2Saw, TOSAW, for more information. I just tweeted out a YouTube video on it.
There you go. Check out the man's tube videos. He's always angling for more tube or Twitter followers, I should say, and tube followers. We'll take them both. So tell you what, we're gonna retweet that so you can see that from us as well, listeners, as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until our next show on Thursday. Real quick check-in here. First off, our chat's mentioning Mr. Rock Lobster. That didn't Microsoft come out and say that they see a slowdown and said they are cutting a few thousand jobs and no more hiring for the year. I'm an options queen is saying that it's typically seasonal layoffs. Yeah, that seems to be the case from what I've seen as well. That looks like they do regular layoffs coming into their new fiscal year, and then they kind of readjust and they kind of go from there. I haven't seen anything about them saying there's going to be a big slowdown for this. It sounds like they still want to rehire people. They're just doing their typical adjustments. So that's what I saw. But again, I don't follow Microsoft day to day, so perhaps there are some other things going on behind the scenes there. In terms of what you folks have on the brain, our question of the week right now, the Fed is back, sending everybody into a tizzy about rates. If you had to buy a SPY at the money call or put at the time, it was right around $39.70, expiring at the end of this week, which way are you going? You buying that SPY put to fade the rally? Or are you buying that SPY call because you're all in rally ho, baby? Or you're a greedy SOB? You're buying that straddle. And right now, it's 60% of you fading the rally, buying that puts, 36% of you buying the call, and 4% getting greedy with the straddle. It just went live right before showtime, listeners. So get out there at options and make your voice heard. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you paying attention to for the rest of this week until Thursday? And have you heard about this rumor about a slowdown or a hiring decrease in Microsoft, sir?
I think it's happened all across tech. I mean, everybody's saying recession. So the first thing businesses are going to do is say, okay, we believe you, and, slow down hiring. I'm sure Microsoft is such a huge company, they could lose 5% of their workforce, and they just kind of cut the dead weight anyway. So I don't think that's anything new for a company like Microsoft. But again, I do see some potential volatility in technology, and mostly, again, on the heels of Snap as well. Like, okay, that stock was down how much? Remember those 9 puts from last week that got the tickle? If there's any kind of real slowdown in advertising spending, what that's not going to be great for big tech, especially at the valuations they have. So yeah, again, I look at all that, and I think we'd probably be a little lower at the end of the week because we got close to 4,000, and I think that's the level that we need to get through when, I would say things are on the mend. Now, the market's usually ahead. The market was clearly ahead selling off before everything got bad, so it's usually a little ahead when things get better. And I think we're still in that kind of vacillating state yet. So I think it's all the Fed's going to do something. They're going to telegraph their rate rises, and then we'll see what we get.
We will see indeed. Mr. Uncle Mike, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week? And are you surprised that 60% of our audience right now is fading this rally, fading the Fed, sir?
Sorry about that. I think I muted myself while I was talking. No, it's not surprising to me. I mean, we've had a little bit of a rally right now, and to me, we have not gone over the 4,000 mark. So I've actually pulled a little bit of the deltas off the table earlier this week myself. Late last week. So it's not surprising to me. And so with what we have going into, I'm surprised that we didn't have more straddle buyers out there, quite honestly. So I guess that could be a good thing if people don't want to burn their money on the premium.
That could be a good thing indeed. Unfortunately, listeners, that's going to do it for us here on the option block. The Rock Lobster stunned. Vince McMahon stepping down as CEO. Welcome to last week, sir. That was big news last week. Yeah, you know what's crazy? What's crazy, speaking of that, I mentioned, we've talked about on this show multiple times how WWE is one of the few stocks that is kind of bucking the sell-off this year. They were rallying all year long. One of the few question marks hanging over the stock was, do they have a real succession plan in place? And apparently the market likes this succession plan because the guy who built this company from scratch pretty much, he bought it from his dad, but he turned it into what we know today. He kind of created the modern era of televised wrestling. And this guy has been at the helm since inception, and the stock has rallied from $66 to $71 since he stepped down. So apparently people were fearing a massive sell-off when he stepped down. Apparently his stepping down is actually worth about a $5 premium in the stock. So go figure, $71 right now for WWE. Crazy town. If you had been buying in on wrestling earlier this year, listeners, even back in July a year ago, they were trading sub $50. So I remember back when they were right at the beginning of the pandemic, when they were about to cancel WrestleMania, I was very close to selling the 30 puts for a couple of bucks. And I thought, man, if they cancel WrestleMania, this thing's going to blast down into the low 20s, maybe even teens. And then, of course, it has done nothing but rally since then. So, alas, I look back upon those puts with regret and or fondness. Let's go around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want to reach out to you about this amazing pop in WWE stock or anything else, where should they go? What should they do?
Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW. If you're looking for a financial advisor to talk wrestling and options and financial planning in general, check out my website. You can contact me through there, stcharleswealth.com.
And Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you, sir. If folks want to reach out to you, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com or call 888-TRADE-01. Ask for Ted. Say, hey, you heard Andrew on Option Block. Get 10% off anything at Option Pit. You can't find a better deal than that anywhere. And I still think the 30 puts are a good sale in WWE. The problem is I don't think you can get anything
get
for
like
them
3 cents for them now. But when they were like $2.50, yeah, they were pretty good. They were pretty juicy.
Yes.
Yes. Check them out, optionpit.com. You, too, can get belated announcements of WWE executives stepping down from the Rock Lobster. That's going to do it for us today, listeners. All you live folks will be back in a little bit to dive into the madness, the maelstrom that is all things crypto. Do we want to put it on the back of our crypto, or should I say, back of our fortune cookies? Well, I guess tune in to find out. And, of course, for all you listening after the fact, hit next on your device of choice. And the crypto rundown should be there waiting for you. Of course, I mentioned the Pro Q&A moving from its usual slot tomorrow. I'll probably be back later this week. In fact, I think I just got confirmation from our producers. We've got Mr. Saad Hussein from Vesica, the creator of Shift Search, who will be joining us for the Pro Q&A this week. We're going to do double duty. He's going to do it right after Oddities this week, and maybe we'll see if he twists his arm. Maybe we can get him to join us for a little bit of Oddities fun as well. He likes a little bit of the old unusual activity over there at Shift Search as well. So that could be a fun one. Stay tuned for that later this week. Double Dose of Pro coming easy for me to say. Double Dose of Pro coming at you on Friday. All the other usual goodness coming at you later this week. Back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.